Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here in Hendrickson Library at the Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization at ITR World Headquarters in Central Iowa. Today, after a long absence, we have Sarah Curry back in studio today. Many folks have about given up on you, but here you are, so we're happy.
I'm still here. I'm still around.
So I think you're a regular listener when you're not here. At least you claim to be. I don't know whether you are. You're just telling me that to make me feel good or not. But the goal that we've been trying to get John to do is just be much more exciting and emotive and all that. So I want you to think about that.
You want me to be more exciting?
Well,
I should be the one that's toning it down.
As the words were leaving my mouth, I thought, do you really want to go there, Chris? But here we are. So let's go. Let's have fun.
Let's go.
All right. Wonderful. Okay. So in pre-production, the conversation, someone asked, what are you guys going to talk about today? And the answer you gave was,
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out when we get there. So here we are figuring it out. I do have some things I want to cover today. First and foremost is just a reminder to folks, and I've been trying to remember to do this on the front end. If you are an audio listener, if you got this on your iPhone or whatever, we're on video as well. So you actually get to watch all this. When I say be emotive, that's what I mean. But so check us out on YouTube and all of that. But we're on whatever platform you consume podcast type content on. But make sure that you like and subscribe. Make sure you share this with folks. We want to make sure that we think there's a growing number of people out here that are listening to the podcast. I just want to make sure that we get that in front of as many folks as possible.
So I get to do a trivia question? I can't.
You have one.
I do, but it's not a historical quote from someone important. It's totally random.
Oh, it's totally random?
Yeah, but it's a good one.
So the answer is not the 1985 St. Louis Cardinals?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, try me.
Okay. In classic Disney movies.
Classic Disney movies.
Yeah. Okay. There is the name of a prince. There's only one prince that also shares the name of one of Jesus's disciples. What movie is that?
Well, it's not Prince Ali.
No.
I'm just trying to think. So it's the name of the movie?
Yeah. What Disney animated movie? I'll say it's an animated movie. The prince has the same name as one of Jesus's disciples. There's actually only one. There's two movies that have a biblical name, but there's only one that's, yeah.
I don't know. Tell me.
It's Prince Philip in Sleeping Beauty.
And if I'd have thought here long enough, I probably could have backed my way into that answer.
See, I got some knowledge too, just not John's.
Interesting. What favorite Disney animated movie?
Oh, Beauty and the Beast.
And which version of Beauty and the Beast?
The 1992 version.
Great. That is the correct answer in there.
Yes.
Really, yeah.
And when it came out, my mom took me to the Dollar Theater probably 8 times. I've memorized every lyric. I know all the songs.
Yeah.
Their live action one was okay, but I'm sorry, you can't beat.
Speaking of live action remakes, and we'll move off this quickly, I promise, folks, those of you that are here for tax policy only, saw the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake. It was wonderful.
I didn't get to see that one.
I was so impressed. My expectations were low, and I left thinking, we went and watched it at the drive-in theater, actually. It was great.
I love How to Train Your Dragon. I got to see Lilo and Stitch live, the live action, and I will say that's probably one of the few times that I'll say the live action version was better than animated version.
I maybe won't go that far, and that's more of just because of how much I really enjoyed the first one, but it was really good. I would recommend that to anybody. I might actually, if we're talking about the original Disney movies, I may actually agree with you on Beauty and the Beast. And I don't know. I guess the follow-up is, do we include Pixar in all of that? Because if we do, there really is nothing that stacks up to Toy Story.
I'm not, see, I didn't like the end of Toy Story.
Okay, we're done. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. That's all the time we got for today. Toy Story is one of the...
in my defense, I'm a girl, princess, pretty girl. I like that more.
Toy Story is on the Mount Rushmore of American cinema.
Okay.
Okay, we do need to talk about business here. So we're going to get into an event that we held here last week, and because it was really your thing, and I want to get into that. But first, today is today is Tuesday, July 1st. And July 1st is the date that most of the new laws passed by the legislature actually take effect. And so if you're reading the newspaper, like you'll see some coverage of this, but unless they specify otherwise, and people ask me how this works sometimes, July 1st is the day. So even though they passed the law and the governor signed it 2 or 3 months ago, today is the day. And so I'm sure you've looked at some of this stuff, but that these new laws came about. And so the ones that just a few that I think you'll see in a lot of the media coverage is the new hands-free law. Mm-hmm. So as you're driving back and forth across I-80, it's completely hands-free from now on. There's no text messaging or choosing, the next song or anything. You just get the hands off the phone altogether. So, are you ready for that?
No.
Okay. Is that something that you need the government to regulate for you?
I'm just gonna plead the fifth
All
on
right.
that because
I'm going to tell you a story about. Yeah. Anyway. I have. I think sometimes this goes a little too far, but anyway, whatever. A lot of the things that the legislature did on gender identity and some of those constellation of issues take effect now. So the one that was the Medicaid's not going to pay for sex change operations, that takes effect July 1. The PBM bill, the removing of gender identity from the Civil Rights Code. It's a lot of these things. But one that I noticed, and I'm trying to find the segue into what we're kind of talking about now, but fireworks, changes to Iowa's fireworks laws.
Boom.
Yeah, boom. Good job. There, the subtle, understated boom. That's your emotion to get the folks fired up for the. Yeah, great. I appreciate it. But the legislature stepped in and, sometimes preemption things, you have to talk about them backwards, how they work, but said that local governments cannot outlaw using fireworks between certain times, correct?
Yeah, but I need you to tell me, why is this important? Why do we care that the state is telling local governments when they can use fireworks and when they can't?
Because America. No,
that's
America.
Boom.
Okay. No, because freedom. Why is it important?
Well, okay, so from a legal stance, right? We live in communities. You live in one community.
Right.
So, great example, the Des Moines metro area, okay? If you lived in Altoona, fireworks were banned completely. You could
Which
not
also,
have
by
any
the way, has
fireworks.
one of the best displays in the state of Iowa, Prairie Meadows. But go ahead.
Okay, so if you live there, you couldn't set off fireworks on your private property.
Right.
But you go maybe 30 miles away,
Right.
and the city allows fireworks on private property. So it's kind of this, what happened was there's this patchwork of different regulations all across the state, and nobody kind of knew what the rules were. And so whether you agree or disagree with the regulation on fireworks is kind of a moot point. It gets back to the point of the state made a law, and now whether local governments like it or not, they have to follow state law. They can't say our local ordinance is stronger than state law. It doesn't work like that.
Two things. I'm going to get back to more of an answer to your question, but I can't let that pass up. Altoona is the entertainment capital of Iowa. Shout out to ITR Live podcast listener Colin Tadlock, and I want to make sure that I didn't miss that opportunity. So we're here for you. Love
good.
Altoona.
That's good.
Anyway, secondly though is home rule and local control. We've heard all about it, and again, it comes back to local control is not here to save me tax dollars or increase my freedom. It's only here to regulate. When it comes to these sort of home rule or preemption issues, what are the needs of Urbandale different from the needs of Clive or Waukee, or are they sort of all the same? We live it up to local communities to specific zoning ordinances or how they want to police their communities or structure certain things. But whether or not it's appropriate to purchase or light fireworks isn't different between those. You may have different opinions in those communities, but the impacts and the reasons why are the same across the state. And so therefore it's up to the sovereign, which is the state of Iowa, to decide those matters. And they have said, no, on the 4th of July, you get to light fireworks.
And New Year's Eve.
And New Year's Eve too.
Right.
But
the locals still have control over regulations
Correct.
outside of those two different periods. But I think it brings up a very valid point because preemption covers more than just fireworks.
Right.
We had some local communities that wanted to have their own minimum wage laws. You can't do that. Iowa has said this is the minimum wage. And so there's just different things. Taxes are a great example of the state doing preemption, because if local governments say we now want to create this new revenue source or create this new tax, they can't do that because they only get their taxing power from the state. And so it's really just would you say it's like a legal
what you don't
framework
you get in these situations where you just have this patchwork of local regulations, and especially here in, let's say, in central Iowa, where you've got a lot of contiguous cities, and yet the regulations are different. Maybe one community has a different minimum wage. Maybe one community bans plastic bags or whatever whatever the overregulation of the day might be. I remember, gosh, it's been many years ago when we were trying to expand firearms permits, is that you had this patchwork of ordinances where you could actually carry a handgun in this state. And certain communities, you couldn't take it to a public park, but then you could in others. And you could literally be riding your bike down the bike trail, and depending wherever the magical boundary was, you'd be breaking the law or not, which come with pretty stiff penalties, just depending on where you were. And that doesn't make any sense. And so because the legal principle stays the same throughout. So anyway, I think, my thoughts on this, on local control or home rule. The legislature gets to pretty much do whatever they want, or should, because the legislature created these local communities and local subdivisions and get to decide. And I know that's not a popular opinion always, but
I think it's important for our listeners and for people to just understand, like, preemption and state law. And so if you see a conflict and you're like, well, my local city or county is telling me this, but then the state law says that, there does need to be uniformity between the two.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And but I think you'll see this play out too. We've seen it in the tax debate. You hear this, that often you'll hear the idea of, well, we should be able to tax whatever we want. The state shouldn't limit our ability to tax. Again, it comes back to the idea that the state decides these matters of taxation and what the limits on that are, and that is completely appropriate. But and the conflicts obviously are very important too. Do you have big 4th of July plans? Are you someone that enjoys a big fireworks celebration, or?
We're too cheap. We just watch other people's.
Oh, that's fine. But I mean, do you like to go out and watch all the fireworks?
Yeah, we do. The kids are almost getting old enough now; they can stay up to when it gets dark in the summertime. So.
Yeah, no, it's great. The kids, I remember early on, it's almost like it was too loud, didn't like it. But the whole family really likes fireworks displays. We'll go to multiple. We've got a couple public ones, a couple of private ones. We're going to make a whole fireworks weekend out of it. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, we're not old enough to do that yet. Bedtime's at 7:30, so we're going to stretch it so we can stay up till it gets dark.
America. Got to do it. All right. Okay, so one thing that I really did want to spend some time with, since we have you here, is the event that we held last week. And rather than me spoiling it, I'm going to let you just talk about what it was and what it was about and how it went.
Well, we have a lot of great resources for taxpayers. But we also have a lot of resources for local government officials, and we mean county supervisors, city council, and then also school board members. And so we felt, as an organization, that we need to give support to these local elected officials that are trying to do the right thing by the taxpayer. And sometimes they feel like they're on an island because they're out there trying to do the right thing, and they keep, getting all this pushback and hearing from all these people talking about how horrible it is, the things that they're doing. And so what is the philosophical right decision making, and what kind of skills and tactics can we give these people? And so we invited some local government officials to Des Moines, and we brought in some speakers. One of them, Mark Moses. He is an author of a municipal finance book. I know it sounds boring, but I found it riveting. It was wonderful. He does administrative evaluations of local governments. And so what he talked about, which I found really, really interesting, was mission creep. What is the mission of a city, and what are they supposed to do? And then we heard from some others, like on school boards. We had someone come in from California, and I mean, you want to talk about schools and what they've had to fight against in California, and kind of seeing how to stay true to your principles and who you are as a person and not letting outside things influence you. You gave a great talk on campaign strategy and just communication and how to get that message out to voters. So anyway, I thought it was a really, really great event. I got a lot of feedback from people saying they learned a lot of things. Yep. I think the thing that really stuck with me was that, like, people, especially elected officials, sometimes we think they have all the answers. Oh, you're elected to office. You must have all the answers. You must know how it all works. And we're all people and we're all learning. And sometimes they need support too. And so I think getting in a room with some experts that can help them and just give them some pointers really means a lot, because they can take it back to their communities and try to apply that.
I think sometimes it can be, and for some of the folks, even more basic than expert advice, which we are happy to help try and connect people with. Sometimes they just need a little bit. I'm in a room with people I know I'm comfortable talking to because they see the world the same way I do. Or I know that, like you said, that I'm not alone. Or just the little bit of a pick-me-up to know that, there's people that have done these things and they had some wins, and to really just sort of feel that momentum. That can be really powerful for somebody, because we've talked with you and I both. You talk to more local elected officials than I do. That idea that I feel I'm all out here. I'm fighting not just the others on my board or my council, but it's the staff that want to do certain things. That's the way we've always done them, or this, that, and the next thing. And we can provide, like, you know what? You were elected to do a job. They elected you. And you don't have to fall in line, which I think is often there's a momentum. You talk about mission creep, but there's also a certain momentum, or just a way they do business or whatever. And it's okay to challenge that.
Like I heard a lot of people say, well, this is the way we've always done things. Well, you're not in a great situation, so let's change it. Yeah. I think one of the great messages that I think, and this applies to everybody, right, is I genuinely believe that most of our local elected officials are doing the job because they want to help their community. They have good intentions at heart.
Unquestionably. I think there's a few that aren't, but I think by and large, yes.
And sometimes there's a project and this sounds really good. Well, of course we need this project. And what Mark Moses talked about was that might be a good project, and it might be nice in your community, but is that the role for your local government? Is that the purpose? And then we had some people ask questions about growth. Well, how do we grow? And so Mark kind of posed the question back, why do you need to grow? Mm-hmm. You already have people that have chosen to raise their families and live in your community. Don't you owe it to your existing residents to make sure they have good roads, snow removal, they have a good police force, they have fire, these core services that we all rely on.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that splash pad is nice, and people might want the splash pad. But is that why people are moving to your city, is because of a splash pad, or are they moving to your city because you have good police force and it's a safe community and they have roads to drive on? And so he kind of made the argument of, instead of trying to incentivize growth and trying to get people to move to your community, just do the expected things really, really well, and people will naturally come. And I think that's a really strong message, because we get caught up in, well, that's a good idea, this is a good idea, and this is a good idea. And it's not to say they're not good ideas, but is that the role of government?
Or the why? Why grow?
Yeah.
And I think we like the idea. It sounds nice. And frankly, it's probably a good thing. I think too often growth means a bigger tax base to draw money from in many of these ways, that if we grow, then we can do other things. And growth, the why for it maybe means something different in Dallas County, which I think just in the last couple of days, talked about how far it's outpacing the national average in terms of growth. I mean, Dallas County's booming. We're growing either way. It doesn't matter what government does here. We're going to get growth. But in areas maybe more like where you live, well, that's harder. And maybe you need. The point is why? Why are you pursuing that? And I guess where I'm trying to get to is, it benefiting the people that elected you that are paying the taxes, or is it serving some other need that you may have to grow for some other nebulous interest than to serve the people that live there?
Yeah, and I tell people this all the time. I live in the Omaha metro area. If we had the best police force, the best roads, it snows and your roads are plowed before you know it snows, and great fire response and low property taxes, you wouldn't need one economic incentive because everybody would flee out of Omaha and Bellevue and the neighboring areas and come live in our community if that's what you want. Sometimes I think growth has negative unintended consequences, like can your schools handle it? Can your roads handle it? Can your utilities handle it? But again, the other thing too is you want to think about if you're always attracting the next best thing, you forget that there are people that have chosen to live in your community. Like, I was just talking to a lady. She's a 6th generation resident of Pella. Mm-hmm. She loves that community. That's where her family was raised, her heritage, her background, and she's emotionally committed to that community. Right. That is better than trying to attract someone to move there from somewhere else. It's just using it as a temporary place because they're employed. They're not going to care. She genuinely cares. Yeah. And so I think sometimes our local officials forget the fact that we have people that have chosen to live in small town Iowa because it's a family history. It's a legacy. It's a lineage thing. It's not about the next best thing.
Well, but I think that's a good reminder. And I think where it pops up sometimes, and I'm not trying to pick on growth because it's your community growing is a good thing generally. Like you said, there's unintended consequences, but what is the thing that you're trying to build? And does it going back to that notion of separating wants versus needs, or what is the function of government? Does government need to build that rec center, or is the one that we had before good enough? Do we need the latest, flashiest thing so we can compete with the next city over? Do we need a splash pad? Do we need an aquatic center? Do we need to build the new building? And again, largely those things are, I guess if the money's there at the local level to decide, but because this meeting, this symposium that we held, wasn't to try and drive statewide policy.
No, not at all.
And so it was to try and get to share these ideas of how they should function at the local level. So set aside the idea of whether the state should come over the top of them with spending limitations. That's a different conversation, which we are more than happy to continue to have. But how should these folks, they're not going to the Capitol to set policy. They're going to the city hall. They're going to the courthouse to set this. And how should they proceed? And maybe they should make the decision, we don't need the splash pad right now. Or we don't need the new fire station.
Right.
It sounds good. We all want good, fire protection, but maybe we don't. So I think that's an important shift from how we have sometimes think about policy on property taxes, is actually dealing with the folks that are making those decisions in the trenches and empowering them at the local level. So we have brought some of them together.
Yeah. And, I think, Iowa's a really diverse state, and you've got people from all over. Central Iowa has different issues and needs and concerns compared to Northeast Iowa, Southwest Iowa, all those types of things. And I think bringing people together so you can have someone from Burlington talking to someone from Sioux City that might not normally cross paths, and they can say, oh, that happened in our community and that's how we fixed it. And then share that with someone else. They have, they don't care what's going on in Burlington. They live in Sioux City, right? But they can share their experience and maybe educate and benefit that. So we have a lot of great ideas in Iowa. I think we need to find ways to share it. I forgot to mention Alan came and he talked
Alan
about
Ostergren from the Kirkwood Institute.
He came and spoke, and he gave a wonderful presentation on just legal issues. Mm-hmm. And how local governments need to kind of stay in their lane. And, it was after lunch. Everybody was tired. And he was giving a talk about open meetings and records laws. Yeah. And you would think everyone would be falling asleep. And we had some really good conversation and people asking questions about that.
Look, Alan's been on the podcast several times. And he's really good at communicating. He's fun. People like listening to him, even on what in other days might seem like a dry legal topic. He made it fun. Folks really enjoyed that, I think.
And I think they really enjoyed the fact that they're sitting there and here's this attorney that has a world of experience in these issues, and they can just...
He's got a briefcase and everything.
Yeah. He brought it with him, yeah. But they could just candidly ask him a question like, hey, in my meetings, this is going on. How should I handle this? Hey, in my meetings, I've got this. How do I handle that? And so I think that was really valuable too. And so I think it was a success. We want to have it again.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we're just going to continue to keep giving local officials kind of resources and support so they can continue to do a good job for taxpayers.
I think that's right. A couple of things that really stuck out to me is, I guess just the vibe from people is that they really did appreciate the content And it was a lot, and I think it was a lot for people to digest, but it was really, I thought it was myself excluded from that. I mean, quality content that helped people do better, and not just for local electeds, but candidates as well. There's several new candidates in the room, or folks that had been involved in maybe a ballot measure looking at running for office. So it's not exclusive to that, but it wasn't just all of the right wingers either. I mean, we had, I don't want to say we had, a whole bunch of progressive activists in the room, but there was not unanimity in belief in what, the size and scope of a local government ought to be either. But it still didn't mean we couldn't come together and talk about ways to do things better. And I just thought it was a great event. I think, and we heard that feedback from a lot of people there. So anyway, I say that we're not hosting this again next month. Hopefully we're doing it again. It'll be next year.
Yeah.
I think you're pretty much would like to get back to just writing articles and helping people on the phone. But if you're listening to this and thinking, man, I know somebody that should have been there, or I think that would have been good information for me, you're still welcome to reach out to us. We still want to help, right?
Yeah.
So
I just got a call yesterday from a county supervisor, and this individual was saying, we've got this situation and this is what's going on. Am I crazy? Am I left field? Because I just don't want to spend the taxpayers' money that way. And I was just reassuring this person that it's okay. What they're doing is right, and it's principled. It's just it's a departure from the way things have always been done, and so people aren't used to that. So we do that all the time because it is hard. Taking on a local elected official job is difficult, and trying to do a good job at it is even harder.
Yep. When we were at the Capitol, if you've been around it all, you break into the Republican caucus and the Democrat caucus. You go into a room, and you discuss the issue and where do you want to go, and guiding through all of that. And there's a camaraderie that starts from that people that are in that room together. And in some ways, you almost think of it as a family. Well, if you have one supervisor on a board of a bunch of people that don't agree with them, Republican or Democrat, conservative, but they don't have that camaraderie. Mm-mm. If you're on a city council and you're the one person that's trying to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't think this is the right thing to do, you're all alone. And hopefully we can start to make those connections where people can feel some sort of connection or relationship with other people that have faced these things, or other people that have thoughts and these ideas, and bring it together. And I think that piece right there is what there's a lot of folks are hungry for, because they're doing a big thing and it's hard.
Yeah. And we had some local elected officials that stood up and just kind of shared how they've used ITR and how ITR has helped them. And so visiting the ITR report card and then the ITR local website, sometimes it helps them not feel so alone because they have cover. They're like, look, this is what's going on. I'm not alone here. Yeah. We have to curb this because of, the taxpayers and our community and that type of thing. And so, but you know what, those local elected officials, I learned from them just as much as they learned from me. It's definitely a back and forth. And so if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, hey, I'm a local elected official, I got a question about this or that, like, share it with me. That's how we learn. That's how we find out what's going on in the community, because we're only as effective as what people need from us.
I think that's well said. So anything else you want to share about the symposium or any of our other local outreach efforts or anything that's coming up?
You forgot to say Happy Fiscal New Year.
Okay, Happy Fiscal New Year. That's exciting. I know the people are out there.
It is for me.
Yeah, we allow fireworks for our nation's independence, but we don't allow them for the new fiscal year. It's a sad oversight in the new fireworks law.
Yeah, right. So we talk about spending all the time. We talk about taxes all the time. July 1 is when those new budgets take effect.
Really? Well, yeah, I was going to say the first month is always when our family budget resets and we can go back and buy groceries again too. So
yeah, Chris, he needs groceries really bad.
Yeah, we got them now. That's great.
Yeah. So anyway, everyone's talking, the budgets that we all talked about back in March and April and the changes that local governments were making. Now those plans are in effect. And so now they are operating under these new budgets and these new plans.
The first day of fiscal year 26.
It is fiscal year 26. Yep. So, Anyway, so that means that the last fiscal year's data will be coming out soon, and so we will be calculating out our pain index. And
yeah,
so
I heard you guys talking about that today. So
Yep.
that'll be maybe next time you're here, we can have a conversation about the pain index.
Yeah, so department management takes all the local government budgets and they approve them and make sure everything's right, and then they will publish a document that has it all together. And so once that document is published, we can come out with our pain index and share that with everybody. And we will be doing city, county, and school pain index on property tax, so that way everybody can see what's going on in their community. So that will be what's coming up next.
I'm looking forward to that. Good. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Glad you could be here. Glad, actually, this is what's remarkable is that we actually made time for this today, because a lot of times when you get to the office, there's a lot of other work that needs to be done, or I'm just not getting around to my end of it that day. But you were here in the studio. We did not do a construction update, but we're still eagerly awaiting some of the pieces that you want to do, and maybe even building out a separate type, or the other half of the studio, if you want to call it. But you'll be the one giving the construction update one of these days.
Yeah, because I'm going to make it look pretty.
Yeah. Now, one of these days, we're actually going to make a move here, but we're getting really close, folks. So stay tuned.
Well, was I exciting enough? Did I pump it up, or do you need more from me?
I think so. I think so. I think the booms were a little understated, but we'll work on that.
I didn't want to hurt everybody's eardrums.
I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. And with all of that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.